WBUR podcast, Boston.
This is Up Next. I'm Tiziana Deering. Josephine St. Pierre Ruffin is a legendary name in Boston activism. She fought tirelessly to improve the lives of Black Americans starting in the 1800s. At one point, Ruffin brought Black women from around the country to Boston to organize against lynching and Jim Crow laws. A new play looks at how Ruffin's work shaped Boston and beyond. WBUR's Sharon Brody spoke to local playwright Miranda Austen ADEkoje about her play called A New Era, and they started with who Josephine St. Pierre Ruffin was.
Josephine, she was a force. She was a local activist. She was an editor. She created the Women's Era Journal, which was a newsletter, the first newsletter to feature editorials from Black and white club women from around the country. She was also the founder of the Women's Era Club of Boston.
And these clubs weren't really social clubs.
No, they were activist clubs. There were places that you could go and figure out what the next moves were. And these clubs, they wanted to make changes not only in their local communities, but also on a national level.
Your play is set in 1895 on the last day of the first National Conference of the Colored Women of America, and that is a conference organized by St. Pierre Ruffin. Why did you choose to make that the centerpiece of the production?
So the first National Conference of Colored Women, which was hosted here in Boston, was a major turning point for Josephine's work. The inciting incident for the play is a letter by a reporter. I just call it the Jack's letter. He who shall not be named. And there was a woman in England who reached out to this Jack's fellow and said, hey, what's going on in the States? We're hearing about this horrible thing called lynching. And he sends a letter back trying to assure her, oh, madam, lynching is very necessary because Black people in America are X, Y, Z. That letter got to Josephine St. Pierre Ruffin. And at that point, she said, I'm going to host a conference here of Black women, club women from around the country. And in order to demonstrate their convictions, I'm going to add a letter, this Jack's letter, to every invitation I send. That's the woman that Josephine was. She said, anybody who comes will be resolved to stand on their principles and meet. Because the letter at the time was offensive, couldn't even be published. So that's why the conference was so important. And for me as a playwright, you always got to start with, right in the bed of the drama. And so to start the play on the last day of that and kind of go through what happens after was where the crux of the drama was for me.
The conference brings together Black women from across the country.
Yes.
And becomes a space where, in addition to listening to speakers, the prominent speakers, the women can speak with each other and work through some different experiences and different perspectives. Mm-hmm. For example, women in the North have lived without slavery for decades at that point. Southern participants are much closer to that pain. How do those conversations work?
That there was a lot of discord. I will say that there was a lot of discord. Everybody wanted the same thing, which is to stop lynching. How we got there is for the play, the points that I used as the drama. How do we get there? Like you said, there were women in the South who had were just going through Reconstruction and seeing it go away, seeing what was happening. And then women in the North who were much more comfortable with protests and activism and things of that sort. And I think ultimately the question was about individual work versus activism. So individual work and uplift is this idea of if we look at our community, if we educate our community, if we make sure we're healthy, our kids are learning, we're all reading, we can get there together. We can get to this place of protest in a different way. Whereas Josephine and others were like, no, it's not going to work that way. We have to have numbers. We have to come as a united, large force. And if rules are unjust, we must break them. Very different ideas on how to tackle this problem. And I think for me, that's what made it so fascinating to write, because you have to have tension to write a play.
What parallels do you see or lessons that can be learned involving the play and current times?
Right now, we are witnessing amendments that we believed were solid ground, be relitigated and renegotiated in ways that I believe we never thought we would have to actually pay attention to. In the play, the women read the 14th Amendment because it's a great reminder of the excitement of that time. The 14th Amendment was sacred. When it came out, it was in newspapers. And you imagine this group of people who had formerly been enslaved reading those words. You know, I'm a citizen of this country, and I have these rights because of that. That was so sacred to all of them. And I think now, we are now so far from that, the actual words, that when we hear it, we're like, well, that's a given. You know, I'm a citizen of this country and I have rights. And, and we're seeing those rights be compromised, questioned. And I think if there's any moment, now is the moment to go back to the original text and really start holding our government accountable to what they said we have as citizens of this country. And that's for all citizens.
In another 100 or 150 years, if there's a playwright writing about what's happening now, what do you think it will be?
Oh, dear. The central argument for all of these women is that beyond being citizens of this country, which is a protective layer, we are human beings. Slavery, the Jack's Letter, lynching, Jim Crow, those are all dehumanizing institutions, dehumanizing actions to influence a portion of a nation of people to look at Black Americans as less than human. I think that, for me, is the core, the foundation of what all of these women want, what all we want now. I would hope in 150 years.
That was playwright and Bostonian Miranda Austen ADEkoje speaking with WBUR's Sharon Brody. Her play, A New Era, is on stage through August 8th at Dorchester's Strand Theater.